Welcome back to Marvin's Customized Angling Channel. Today I wanted to revisit previous video on making stinger hooks using superlines. What I've done here is just laid out some 4-inch ripple shads, a 6-inch power bait worm or 7-inch sickle tail, and a 10-inch power bait with a sickle tail. And I've gone ahead and just set down jigs to show you there's just a standard jig roughly where the jig hook would come out of this particular bait. And here I used just for example a wide gap hook and the 6-inch worm to show you where that hook will actually be when you insert it into the body. What I wanted to do then was show you that when you have multiple sizes of stinger hooks, you can set them to any length you like, position them like this one is in front of the paddle tail, this one rides just right at the crutch of the paddle tail, this stinger hook will come out 3/4 of the way through the body, this one comes out right before the sickle tail, and this one actually can go back or beyond the body and into the sickle tail. Now in the case of the 10-inch worm, normally I wouldn't be throwing it on a jig, but the 7-inch isn't a problem. This fella here I would probably be trolling it, and I would have had a tandem rig, a minimum of 2 hooks in the body. But again, even if you had 2 hooks in the body, you still have about 4 inches of tail that's running free where fish can latch on, and you're gonna feel a bite, but you're not going to be able to set the hook. We're talking about superlines, and people would look at this and say, you know, I can see it. I can see it between the snap ring and the hook. I can see this fine line. And if I was to take a sample and put it up against the body of this particular bait, it's probably far more visible. The beauty of this particular idea is you can easily color the line, and you can make it any color you like. So here we have a basically translucent line, and we've used a felt marker. So if you lay this down, all of a sudden what you thought was white disappears. And I did this to these other hooks. Like this particular one is got some blue fleck in it, so I have a blue jig head. That's fine. I can turn around and do the same thing with a blue felt marker. So if you think your fish are color shy, or you feel that you're not confident that your stinger hook is going to disappear, you just need to color them up with a felt marker. So you can actually color and camouflage your hooks. In the earlier videos I talked about making your stinger hooks extra long, and now we're talking about the benefits of Superline. And I want you to look at either the 6, 7, or 8-inch plastic bait here and just use your imagination. These baits are molded, formed, and they do not grow in the water. But as soon as you put a live night crawler in the water, it starts to stretch out. The problem with a night crawler when it stretches out and you have a single hook on it, like here, this 6-inch, if it was a real night crawler, could end up like 8.5 inches, no problem. And now you have all of this material that a fish can glom on and still miss the hook. And that's why putting a stinger on is important, and how you place the stinger now becomes important. With a live crawler, you have to have extra material. In other words, the stinger has to be extra long. What you don't want is your crawler to start kinking up. Once it kinks up, everything starts to spiral. It doesn't matter what you have, it spirals and it takes away the action of the worm, ruins your line, and you'll be dragging something around that isn't going to catch fish. So you get an extra long stinger, and I'll just remove this little guy. This was, let's say, our sample jig, and I just used the jig as an example, and we would attach it up here. Now this stinger is actually the length, it's 6 inches long, but it would go anywhere on a natural crawler, anywhere close to the tail or mid-body, as long as there's this ability to flex. You will never get the turning and the twisting and the unnatural movement of a natural crawler. That's why I like making my stingers long. And if you look at a store-bought stinger, which could be approximately this length, maybe a touch shorter, and the only place you can put it to have any kind of flex will be at the natural crawler sex band. That's the darker band that you find just behind the head. But that again still leaves all of this unattended. But if you have the long stinger hook, you can put this hook down towards the tail, and there's enough slack in your stinger that it will move and let the crawler stretch, and it will not start twisting. But you've got the end where the fish is likely to bite covered. So remember, when you make these stingers, don't be afraid of the length, especially if you use live bait like a night crawler. You'll never go wrong. It's always useful to have it that way. So I've just gone through a number of the benefits of using a Superline for a stinger hook. It's not common. It's not something that you see. I know you can take an individual line and you can tie it to the snap ring and you can tie it to the hook. But what happens is you become very limited to the length of your stinger, how short you can actually make it. This way I can shorten it up a lot better than if I tried to tie this manually. Thanks for watching Marvin's Customized Angling channel. We hope you find this video informative and interesting, and hopefully you will innovate and make your own to suit yourself and personalize the sport of fishing.